This morning we're talking about holiness. The question, am I holy? Who's asked that question before? Am I holy? You ever ask yourself, man, am I holy? I wonder if I'm holy. Am I saved? Because sometimes I question it with the things going on or my actions, or I get so frustrated and angry. Man, am I really holy? Am I saved? Is this holiness? Am I holy? I believe it's a question that all believers and unbelievers wrestle with. Am I holy? What is holiness? Can I be holy? Could I hope to be holy? Am I holy? For how do I measure holiness? How am I sure if I'm holy? How can I tell? I don't know about you, but I love chocolate chip cookies. When I grew up, my mom would make them sometimes. And she would help me out, and we'd do it together. We get the ingredients out for chocolate chip cookies. We measure it out. You get the flour, you get the sugar, you get the eggs, you get the chocolate chips, and you have to get the right amount. You want it sweet enough, but you don't want to get it too sweet. We'd usually have oats. It was like an oat chocolate chip cookie, and we'd measure it out and get it good. And when it was my birthday for like elementary school, so we'd always bring it. It's like that's what we'd have to celebrate it, and have chocolate chip cookies. But I know in cooking you got to measure it out and get the ingredients right. And I think in that same way, we look at holiness and say, man, can I measure my holiness? Can I check my deeds? How do I know if I'm holy? Can I measure this holiness? Can I get it out? And when I was that age in elementary and middle school, I would go to church and I would be scared a lot of the times. I'd be scared, am I going to hell? Am I saved? How can I be sure? How can I measure it? Because if I'm not, I don't want to go to hell, so I just keep praying for forgiveness because I want to be holy, I want to be saved. But I can't tell. How can I measure it? How can I be sure? Am I holy? Let's answer this question this morning. We're going to be in 1 Peter 1, starting in verse 13. If you'd like to turn, it'll be on the screen as well. Verses 13 to 16. Let's read it. Therefore, with sober minds that are alert and fully sober, set your hope on the grace to be brought to you when Jesus Christ is revealed at his coming. As obedient children, do not conform to the evil desires you had when you lived in ignorance. But just as he who has called you is holy, so be holy in all you do. For it is written, be holy because I am holy. Be holy because I am holy. When we read those words, it might seem like, man, God's will is not for me to be holy, because how can I be holy as Jesus is holy? Isn't that such a way? Isn't that heavy? How can I be holy as Jesus is holy? How could Peter write these words? Am I holy? Well, when we hear these words, be holy as I am holy, when you hear those words, I feel like our inclination is always to jump to the me part. Be holy as I am holy. I jump to it and I go, man, am I holy? Am I holy? God calls me to be holy. Am I holy? And I begin to check myself. You begin to check yourself. Let's start checking and get to work. Time to roll up my sleeves. Time to get to work. Time to white knuckle our sin, get on top of things. Am I holy? I got to get on top of this. I got to get to work. I'm called to be holy as Christ is holy. Let's get my life in order. Here we go. I'm going to get holy. I feel like that's what we initially jump to. Am I holy? Well, I gotta get holy. I now wear glasses now, as you can see, but for most of my life, I didn't really wear glasses. I wasn't used to them. I didn't wear them. And I remember in math class in middle school, 8th grade, and I'm kind of sitting in the back of the class, and I'm always squinting, leaning forward, trying to see it, like asking the girl who's sitting next to me, what's that word? What's that number? Am I seeing that right? Am I seeing that clearly? And I remember going home from school one day and I began to tell my mom about it. How, I'm just not seeing very well. I'm not seeing very clearly. She's like, Gage, you need glasses. And I'm like, what? Oh, maybe I do. Maybe I actually do. So I began to get glasses. And then I didn't really wear them much when I got them in 8th grade and as I was getting older, but I began to get glasses and I can finally see the math that is on the board. And that year, that grade, we were talking and we were going through proofs, mathematical proofs, if you know them. They were like, try to figure out what x is, try to determine what x is. If you guys remember, and you can flash back to math, where you do proofs and you figure out what x is. If I input all the numbers, put this here, put 3 here, put 4 here, it comes out to, well, 5 must be x because it answers and it equals out to it. Proofs was a logical equation. It was a logical argument where I try to find the truth and I put in things that I don't know with things that I do know to find the truth and get to the answer. I hope I haven't put anyone to sleep from talking about math for a little bit there. But in the same way that we try to figure out these math problems, I tell you, just as you try to prove math, you also try to prove holiness. I try to prove holiness. I ask the question, am I holiness, and begin doing the list of mental calculations. Crossing my checklist, dotting the T's. Did I pray today? Did I go to church this week? Well, have I done a good job reading my Bible? Well, I haven't really got mad at my wife lately, and so I'm doing pretty good there, right? Oh, but man, maybe I've been a little prideful. Man, maybe I need to work on that. But man, it's coming out. I'm looking at the list, and man, I'm doing all right. I'm doing kind of good. Like, I'm as holy as best as I can be. Do we not do these things? Do we not try to add up the calculations and say, am I holy or am I not holy? Because I know I need to be holy. I see what it says and I'm called to be, so I got to measure it. I got to figure it out. But the problem with this, and the good news about the word in 1 Peter, is that isn't the point of what he's saying. The word says, be holy as I am holy. Be holy as I am holy. The focus is not my holiness, but the focus is the holiness of God. I am to be holy as God is holy. I'm not to be holy as Gage is holy. Be holy as God is holy is completely different. It says be holy as God is holy. It's not focused on the works of Gage. It's not focused, put your name in blank. It's not focused on your works and your own individual holiness, but the holiness of God. That I am to be holy as God is holy. So what is God's holiness? What is God's holiness? The call isn't my individual holiness, but the call is the holiness of God in me, the holiness of God in you. The holiness of myself, my works, my deeds, my righteous merriment is clear. It's works righteousness. It's legalism to the law. That if my works are good and I did enough, then I'm good, then I'm clear. But if my works are bad and sinful, then I'm unholy. And legalism can turn into following the law, keeping the rule, and being holy to myself. But that is not the way at all. Christ calls us to be holy as Christ is holy. Christ calls us to be holy as Christ is holy. So when I look this way and I turn this way, I don't start with holiness with myself. I start with holiness with God. I look at God. I begin with God. For when we talk about holiness, we have to start with God, for holiness starts with God. Holiness is a part of God. Holiness is who God is. Holiness is who God is. God is incredible. God is the King of Kings, the Lord of Lords, created the universe, spoke, and the world came to be, brought us into existence. God is apart from us. And when I look at Jesus, everyone, truly everyone, from believers and non-believers, are amazed at the life of Jesus because of the life he lived. Jesus knew no sin, committed no sin, fully God and fully man, like no other, did these incredible things. Who is like the Lord, strong and mighty? There is no one that compared to God, to the King of Kings, the King of Kings. But when I begin holiness with myself, it looks a lot differently. I actually see God differently when I begin holiness with myself. When I begin holiness with myself, I fail to see God's apartness. I fail to see how awesome God is. I begin to believe that Jesus was actually just a Superman. He was a man who did great things. I don't see how apart he was. I don't see how great Jesus was. The love he did, the actions he did, all the things that Jesus did. I don't see it. Holiness first starts with God. Holiness first starts with God. And when God acts, it is holy because God is holy. His being is holy. So be holy as I am holy. I look at the life of Jesus, the way he lived. I look at God's holiness. And maybe that's why the verse is scary if you read it. For how am I to compare to that? How can I compare to that? Is this too heavy of a burden? Peter, why would you say this? Why would you write that? Who can measure up to that? Who can be holy as God is holy? And so it leaves me in a scary spot. It leaves me in a scary position. It leaves me in a scary spot. If I asked you if you liked working out, who would say, oh yeah, I like working out. It's a thing I super like. Not very many people would. I think Lucas would. We can tell he's been putting in the work. He won, right? But who usually likes working out? I know not a lot of people. It's not our favorite. I mean, we're literally breaking like our muscles so that it can grow stronger and we're more fit and healthy. And I don't know if you have this experience of working out and man, I need to pump out a couple more sets to be done. Man, if I just lower the bar, man, I just finish this set and get out of here. I mean, I did it, right? Might as well have just worked out a little bit than not worked out at all. And I lower the bar that I set myself. I lower the goal in working out. And as easy as it is to do that with working out, it's easy to do that exact same thing with holiness when we look at God or we don't see God's apartness. So these are the two things that's easy to do with holiness. To lower the bar of holiness of God. I take it less seriously, I take God less seriously, and my view of sin is pretty low, so I can do whatever I want because Jesus paid it all. And the other view is to put extreme pressure on myself and my deeds, where it's to an unhealthy level, where I can't mess up, I can't sin, I have to be perfect and get it all together and follow the rules and be perfect, because God calls me to be holy. Well, I tell you, God's will is for neither of those. God's will is for neither of those. God's will is for you to be holy because God is holy. The main point this morning is God's will for you is to be holy. And this actually isn't a scary thing, but it's actually a good thing. It's good news to be holy. The words of Peter says, be holy as I am holy. I like reading a lot of books, and usually the books I read growing up, and some of the books now are fantasy books and fantasy stories. And in those stories, they always have a castle, right? The castle is so important. You have the big gate at the center that opens and closes. Sometimes, they got the moat of water that goes all the way around, and the drawbridge that'll come down. The big sturdy walls in the castle, and it's not easy to get into the castle. It's hard, and so you'll see stories of people trying to storm the castle, get into the castle, or they're trying to protect the castle and stay inside. But these stories of castles and these walls are important in a lot of fantasy stories and a lot of settings. Well, when Jesus is talking about this, and when Peter's talking about the words here and says, be holy as I am holy, it's actually good news. Be holy as I am holy. The main idea of this holiness is not to be holy in moral purity. The idea, right? God is holy. He's separate from us. God's so great. But instead of building a wall around himself, instead of God saying, man, I'm up in heaven, you guys are down on earth, need to get it together. You guys need to get it together down on earth. I'm all the way up here in heaven. I'm separated. I built this wall. I'm far from you. No, that's not what God said. That's not what God did. God sent Jesus down from heaven to come to us. God didn't diminish his holiness, but he sent Jesus that we could be holy who are not holy. To be holy as Christ is holy. And I don't think there's really anything better than that. I don't think there's really any better news than that. That God did not build a wall around himself, but he came and he said, come, be like me. Be holy as I am holy. That I can say, that you can say, I am holy because God is holy. I am holy because of Jesus. God invites us into his kingdom. God invites us into his castle. God invites us to be like him. That through Jesus Christ we can come into the throne room, enter the presence of the very one who created the universe. There's nothing crazier than that. It doesn't make sense. Why would God do that? Why would God love so much like that? That we could be holy, that we could come to God. It's incredible when we think about it, the love of God. So I can say I am holy because God is holy. Not because I have it all together or I'm all perfect. I can say, I am holy because God is holy. I am holy because God is holy. See, when Jesus died on the cross, the veil was torn in the temple, the Gospels read. And the veil there in the temple was to separate the holies from the most holies. And the high priest would go in there once a year with a rope tied around his leg, that if he went in there and died from being in the presence of God, that he would be pulled out. See, and that veil was torn to symbolize that anything keeping us from God is separated. Anything that keeps us separated from God has been destroyed in Christ Jesus. That I can be holy because God is holy. This is good news. God's will for you is to be holy. And this holiness is not dependent on you, but is dependent on God. It's dependent on God. And so when I see this and I understand it properly, it's not a heavy burden or a heavy weight. It's actually encouraging for me to live my life. It's encouraging. It's good news. So when I read this verse, when the lies come or the fear come, when other people talk about Christians or even question me, it doesn't say be holy because you're perfect. Be holy and never sin. Never sin and then you'll be holy. It doesn't say that. Be holy because you're amazing. No, it doesn't say that either. Be holy and you can do it all on your own. It's your fault if you mess up. No, it doesn't say that either. It says be holy because I am holy. So I am holy because God is holy.